Okay. Okay, I forgot again, Samach Vav Amud Beis. So he ready, the Kohen Gadol already did video on the Sar Mishtalech, and now he's sending it out. And the Mishnah is going to tell us that there were people that were set up in order to be able to escort him the whole way. He shouldn't go himself. He's going to go, we're going to see about a 3.5 hour walk till he gets to the cliff to throw the goat over. So people would escort him. So the Mishnah is going to say that there were shacks all along. People had to stay from before Yom Kippur prepared. They didn't stay, they couldn't walk with him the whole way because it's going to be going out of the Tchum Shabbos. The Ish Itia himself, the one who's the official escort of the goat, he's the one who's allowed to go out of the Tchum. But everybody else is not allowed to, and they had to make many shacks all along the way, and they would only escort him till the next shack. And the Mishnah will tell us how many there were and how far away it was. The first point is to say that the people, the Chashuvim of Yerushalayim, they escorted him until the first check, and that was till the Tchum Shabbos. We'll see, they went to Shir with Tchum Shabbos. And then the people, he rested over there probably, and then they continued going with him till the next check. Eser Sukkos Yerushalayim Batzuk. There were 10 shacks that were set up before Yom Kippur, and people stayed there overnight in order to be ready to escort him and continue with the next leg of his journey from Yerushalayim until the Sukkah. The Sukkah means the cliff where he over there he pushed off the Sar Mishtalech. The Mishnah tells us not only in
where's the word eser? I just came on a little late.
Is it there on the bottom line?
Still?
Eser Sukkos?
Oh,
right
good. Here? Okay. Only missed a few words. Thank you.
10 shacks from Yerushalayim until the Sukkah, until the cliff. From Yerushalayim till the cliff were 10 shacks. And people were stationed in each one from before Yom Kippur. And as he came to each shack, the people escorted him till the next one. Tishim Ris, Shivo, Mechza, L'chomil. Altogether, from Yerushalayim until the cliff were 90 Ris. Ris is a measurement of distance that we usually don't use, and I'm not sure why the Mishnah uses it over here. Altogether, it says that there were 7.5, a mil equals 7.5 Ris. And since it says there were 90 Ris, that makes a total of 12 mil, right? If you have 12 times 7.5 will make 90. If it says there's 90 ris and 7.5 ris per mil, so that means altogether with 12 mil. A Tchum Shabbos is 1 mil. So the people of Yerushalayim were able to go till the first shack, which was 1 mil, and the first till the second till the third till the fourth till the 10th. That's 10 mil, and then he has another 2 mil to go. And the people of the last shack could walk 1 mil, but there's 2 mil till the cliff. So the Mishnah is going to say that he walked by himself. The final mil, he had to go by himself. So top line of the Mishnah says, "I'll call sukkah for sukkah." When he came to each shack, they told him there's food and water over here. If you need to drink and eat, of course it's Yom Kippur and you're not allowed to eat and drink, but they told him that there is available. If you do need, there is over here. The Mefarshim talk about it. That means that it's more mutter for him to drink and eat than anybody else. Maybe not. Maybe he's like anybody else. But if in case he does need, maybe I'm sorry, 1 second, please. Moshe, let's come over here. If that's what he was looking for. If there be need, if he needs to, like anybody else who's needs to eat, he'd be allowed to. So maybe that's the only reason that they had food and water over there. Or maybe someone showed him mashma a little bit that he would be able to eat and drink in order to be able to continue the journey, even though he might rest over there and be able to fast and somebody else should continue. But in order that he should continue, it's even allowed to eat and drink. That's the question the Mishnah doesn't say. The Mishnah says that they had food and water over there. Third line, the people of each sukkah, each shack would escort him until the next shack, except for the last one. So the people can't go all the way because we're going to see that it was 2 mil, that's two Tchum Shabbos. Each Tchum Shabbos is 1 mil, which is 2,000 amas, and they wouldn't be able to go all the way. They only can go halfway, only can go 1 mil. And he continues by himself, the last mil. They stand at a distance and they see what he's doing. It's pretty far to see what he's doing also. 2,000 amas is a pretty far distance, it's a kilometer. I don't know if from a kilometer distance, could you see what he's doing? There's nothing blocking, it's in the desert, but it's to see away from a kilometer. So what we have so far that the journey to go from Yerushalayim to the cliff, according to our Mishnah, says it was 12 mil. They had an escort the whole way, and each escort went for 1 mil until the next sukkah. The last one went from the sukkah for 1 mil, and then they stood over there and they waited until he went by himself for the last leg of the journey. Umaya Osa, what did he do? Once he got there, what did he do over there by the cliff? So, whole lake, Lashon Shel Zahoris, we had before, the Mishnah said that he had tied, when he made that grilla, he tied a red string around the horns, and now it says that he took that string off, it was tied still to his horns, and then they took it off and he cut it maybe in half, and he tied half of it back onto the horns, and the other half he says he's going to put onto a rock. He ties onto a rock. Half of it he would tie on a rock, which was nearby over there, and the other half he would tie back onto his two horns. The Mormon is going to say why. Why did he do that? The then he would push it backwards off the cliff. It would roll off the mountain cliff. It wouldn't even reach halfway down. It already would have been all cut up. So he finished doing what he's supposed to do, and then he can't go back home. He can't go make the 3.5 hour journey back because he's going out of the Tchum, and no reason to go out of the Tchum. The truth is, even going back to the last sukkah is also going out of the Tchum, because the Tchum is 2,000 amas, and he's going to go 4,000 amas. He's going to go back 2 mil. But that Rashi says we do allow him to go back because he's hungry and tired and scared to be in the midbar by himself. So he's allowed to go back to the last shack. People are waiting for him 1 mil away, and 1 kilometer. We'll say a mil is a kilometer, 2,000 amas, and they're waiting over there. He has to finish doing what he's doing. He walks back to them. They're waiting for him, and then they continue. They walk back together to the last sukkah, and sukkah, and they stay there until Motzei Yom Kippur. Everyone's staying.
Excuse me.
Shacks. Yes.
Did every sukkah have like a minyan, and that's where they were davening on Yom Kippur? They were there for Yom Kippur.
It doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem such an issue. I hear what you're saying, and the way we think
like
nowadays.
what does it mean that there's a group that goes to the first one and then they stay there for the rest of Yom Kippur? And how did the one that got to the 9th shack, when did they get there?
Everyone went before Yom Kippur. All 10 shacks, they all went there before Yom Kippur.
So they're all there. They're all there davening on Yom Kippur on the shack.
For the quarantine, the quarantine for the pandemic.
It could be that there's not such an issue about having a minyan, even though we're not used to that idea. But it could be that that's not the point. It could be they could get a minyan if you want, maybe a pretty big shack. But that doesn't.
Saying maybe it was less. Maybe it was less than 10, but the Lavdaf get 10. But whoever was there, that's where they were for
the whole Yom Kippur.
For Yom Kippur, unless they were for the whole Yom Kippur, unless they went from one shack to another shack.
Yeah, but they still ended up in the shack. That's it. They stayed there. No reason to go back to the shack before. That's true. But they're in the shack. They stayed there until the Ish Iti arrived, and then they walked with him till the next shack. And you're right, they could stay there. No reason to go back to the first shack. So they had a change of scenery, but that's about it. And
so there would have been people in 9 shacks. Is that correct? There would have been people in 9 shacks, 1 through 9, and the important people who were in the base of Mikdash. Why not 10? Because the 10th people don't. I thought they didn't go to the tzok. They don't accompany him. They just watch
as far as they can. They walked this. There was 2 mil. There was 2 mil. And they only could go 1 mil. They also walked. They didn't just stay in the shack. They walked 1 mil, and then they stayed there halfway point, and then they walked until he came back. And then they walked back with him to the. It's clear. They were the last shack. There was at 2 kilometers. We'll call it kilometers. The Shir Tchum Shabbos is a kilometer. So from Yerushalayim until the first shack was a kilometer, and he was escorted by people of Yerushalayim. The first shack people. They escort into the second.
Excuse me, and those very important people then who were in the Beit Knesset or were in the Beit HaMikdash, they went to the shack, and then for the rest of the day, they'd be in that shack number 1.
They can walk back if they want to. They have reason to walk back because they'll go back to Yerushalayim. The rest of the shacks, no reason to walk back. They're only going to go to another shack. So what's the difference, this shack and that shack? But you're right. The people of Yerushalayim, they probably.
I thought they're out of the Tchum. I thought they're out of the Tchum.
They didn't go out of the Tchum. No, I'm not sure why you're saying that. Why they didn't go out of the Tchum? They went 1 mil. They went how much of the only the person who is he's the only one who's continued. Everybody goes 1 mil. Everyone goes 1 mil, which is a Tchum Shabbos, and they don't go out of the Tchum Shabbos.
I hear. Yes. Okay. Yeah, it's not the amount. It's not the amount of the length that they're walking. As long as it's all within the Tchum, they can keep walking all day if they want.
Right. Yeah, you go back and forth. Within the Tchum, you're allowed to walk the whole day.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
the Mishnah
Okay.
continues. Bav Yashav Lo Tachas Sukkah Achvona Shetashach. Then the man, the Ish Iti, goes back to the last sukkah. We allow him to go out of the Tchum. He walked 2 mil. He walked out of the Tchum Shabbos, but we do allow him to go back in order to be able to be in safety and also to rest over there. That should be all by himself in the midbar till Motzei Yom Kippur. And everybody stays in the shacks until after Yom Kippur, then they all walk home. The pasuk says in the Torah that the person who escorts the goat becomes tamei. Rashi brings it down. The pasuk in the Torah, so he becomes tamei. So when does he become tamei? So it's machlokes in the Mishnah. Tanna Kama says from when he leaves Yerushalayim, that's when he becomes tamei. Reb Shimon says only when he pushes the goat off the cliff. Okay, so we have a lot of information. The Mishnah says that he had an escort. It doesn't say why he had an escort. Probably to honor the mitzvah. Chaim Dam is saying maybe also for protection, he's going to be going in the midbar. Maybe he should have also that they should have an escort. Maybe whatever reason, it doesn't say why did he have an escort. And they made an escort in a way that nobody's going to go out of the tchum except for
the two manda.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
The two manda amrim that ask about that say whether he leaves Yerushalayim or whether the shlichus is completed. Is that totally in a machlokas of whether it's a din shlichus or not, or why would the mandamer who says when he leaves Yerushalayim, what's his rationale?
The Gemara is going to bring a pasuk about it. I don't know Sfarad. The Gemara is going to say, it says, it seems to be, I don't know if it has any Sfarad. It's going to be what's pshat HaMashalech Hasasa'ir. The Gemara is going to talk about the drash. Today, we'll get to it today, Be'ez Hashem. Okay, so that was the Mishnah about having escort the whole way, and they organized it in a way that he should have the whole time an escort, except for the last one. It doesn't say in the Mishnah why they didn't make 11 shacks. Why not? Make another shack. So it could be that someone, Chavusha said maybe it was dafka supposed to be like in a midbar, shouldn't be in a civilized place. So it had to, according to our Mishnah, it had to dafka be in a place where people were not inhabiting, even temporarily with a shack. So I don't know. That's the pointing out that dafka, it seems that he could have made 11 the shack, no problem. So that's what our Mishnah says. 12 mil altogether.
Excuse me.
The Rashash does comment on the fact that it's dafka yud base mil, like Rashi brings in the first Rashi, and he implies that even the Rambam and the Rif could fit into that, but they were taxing it odd yud base mil. To the Rambam who holds that it would then be derisa. But still odd yud base mil, they wanted it to the maximum, which would get you the maximum of Erevit. So that's why it was yud base according to the Rashash.
Can you remind me who's taking out Azazel? Is it the Kohen Gadol?
There's a designated man. Yesterday's Gemara said it could be even a Yisrael. Didn't say any criteria for him. It says the Kohanim tried to get Dafka Kohanim, but there's no real criteria for the person to. Okay, Tanu Rabbanan. Now the Mishnah only had one opinion, but the Gemara is going to bring other opinions besides our Mishnah. Tanu Rabbanan. Esa Sukkos Shneim was a million Hayu Divra. Meir says altogether with 10 shacks and 12 mil, which is Mamash Mishnah. 10 shacks, 12 mil. Yehuda Omer Tesha Sukkos Vasar mil, and it was altogether from Yerushalayim till the cliff was only 10 mil. It doesn't say if he's arguing in the Metzios, where was the cliff exactly, or it depends where the cliff is. If there's a cliff, there's a cliff. There's no cliff, no cliff. And you have to go Dafka 10 or Dafka 12. The Gemara doesn't tell us what they're arguing about. But Rabbi says that there were 10 mil and 9 shacks, which means according to him, they did go till the cliff. There was no reason not to go to the cliff. Only Rabbi Meir says that there were 2 mil extra after the last shack. That's why they only went halfway and they had to wait until just watch him. But according to Rabbi they did reach the people. The escort did go till the cliff. And altogether, there were 9 shacks and 10 mil. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Chamesh Sukkos, Vasara Milan Hayu. Rabbi Yossi says you have a less. You only 5 sukkos. Why? Because it's true that you only allowed to go 1 mil, but you could make Erev Tchumen. Erev Tchumen means that you make a pivot, you put food before Yom Kippur, before Shabbat, before Yom Kippur, and that way you'll be able to go, not that you go more than 2,000 amos, but your headquarters is not going to be where you're home, but it's where the food is, as we learned. So therefore you can make a Tchum. You're not allowed to eat. You can make it's true. Kind of was asking how could they make a Tchum Shabbos if you're not allowed to eat, but you are allowed to. We had that more on the Erevin that you are allowed to make a Tchum Shabbos even though you're not allowed to eat it, and it was work. So therefore, you only need less. The truth is, you only need 4. 4 shacks would have been good enough because the people of Yerushalayim making Erev Tchumen, they're allowed to go 2 mil, and then the next shack could go another 2 mil, and say 4 shacks, then Yerushalayim is already going to be 10 mil. Theoretically, it would have been enough to have only 4 shacks. I'm not sure why, if you're doing an Erev. I'm not sure why he says 5. Rashi points out also that he went more than a mil. It seems he didn't go 2 mil. It seems he could have made a full 2 mil and made only 4 shacks, but I don't know why. I didn't see anybody asking the kasha, why does Rav Yossi say 5? If he's anyway doing Erev Truman, he could have made 4. I'm Rav Yossi, Sachli Elazar b'ni. Rav Yossi said, my son Elazar told me that he was challenging me. If you want to use an Erev, so then you don't even need 4 or 5. You could have 2. Why? Because you could put in each shack some people that are making Erev Truman towards one direction, and some people making Erev Truman towards the other direction. So you make from Yerushalayim till the first shack 4 mil, and the people of Yerushalayim, they go out with Erev Truman 2 mil, and the people of the first shack, some of the people of the first shack, they have Erev Truman towards Yerushalayim 2 mil, and they go out and they meet midway. They don't go shack to shack. You could, till now we talked about that each person goes till the next shack. You don't have to have that. You could have that the people come out towards him. They know approximately what time it's supposed to be. And the people of Yerushalayim come out 2 mil with the Erev Truman, and the people of the first shack come towards him, Kabbalah's Panim. They walk 2 mil. That was then between the first shack and the second shack is again make 4 mil. And again, not the same people. You can't make an Erev Truman in both directions. But they made other people. You had, let's say, you said a minyan, 5 people and 5 people. You had 10 people over there. So 5 people made it Erev Truman towards Yerushalayim. 5 people made it towards the cliff. And then the people that were in the second shack, they also make, some people over there make Erev Truman towards the first shack. Some people make towards the cliff. And you could have from Yerushalayim until the first shack 4 mil. And then from the first one until the second one is another 4 mil. And then you have people in the second shack that could go another 2 mil. You also can get all the way from the Yerushalayim until the cliff. You can have just 2 shacks with 4 mil in between. 4 mil till the first shack, 4 mil till the second shack, and then another 2 mil until the end. And you have 2 groups of people within each shack that some made Erev one direction, some made Erev the other direction. So it's not necessary. If you want to use Erev Truman, you could do less than 5 also. You could do less than 4. You could do only 2. That's the end of the Brisa. What do we have? One opinion says that there were 12, only Rav Meir says 12 mil. Rav Meir says 12 mil, and according to him, there were 10 shacks, and the last, they weren't able to go till the cliff with him. The other opinions all hold there only was 10 mil until the cliff. And the question was, how many shacks did you have? Did you have 9, and everybody walked 1 mil? Or did you have 5, and they used the Erev Truman, and each one walked 2, or less than 2, because that would have been enough to have 4. And or it would have even been possible, theoretically, to only have 2 shacks, and you could have gotten, make some people go each direction with Erev Truman, and you could have gotten from the Yerushalayim until the Tzuk with the 2 shacks alone. Everybody besides Rav Meir says that the escort did come until the cliff. Only Rav Meir says that they couldn't make it till the cliff, and they waited after 1 mil and they saw what he was doing. Kaman Azla, that's end of the Brisa. Kaman Azla had the time Yachutz Miyachon Shabahen Shalo Agi Mol Tzuk Ela Omid Mirachuk Veros Masav Kaman Rav Meir. So it says a Mishnah, Brisa, it's also the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that the last shack, the cliff, that last escort was not able to come until the cliff. They had to stand far away and just see what he's doing. That's Rav Meir. Amish only fits with Rav Meir because according to everybody else, the escort did reach with him until the cliff. The Mishnah continued. Each time he came to the shack, they told him there's food and water over here. If you have to, you can eat. We learned in the Brisa, no one ever had to eat. Never in the Ish he never was so hungry that he had to eat. But it did help him to know that the food is there, even though as a rule he didn't have to eat, but to know that the food is available if he didn't need it. So it makes him easier to fast, to know the fact that he could eat if he needs to. Of course, if he's only going to eat only if he has to eat, like Yom Kippur. But the fact that he knows the food is available, it's easier to fast than if there's no food. He's going in the midbar 3.5 hours and he might die, like he doesn't know what's going to happen. So he knows this food, so then psychologically he's okay.
It doesn't say anything about him drinking.
Also, it says drinking. It says
he didn't drink or eat.
Also, yeah, he didn't have drink and eat. Yeah, so Kippur, he didn't eat and drink. It's much better if he'd have to. So I don't know what it means if he have to. If it have to, he's going in the desert. He's going in the desert 3.5 hours.
Yeah,
that's
one thing. Drinking.
Yeah. Okay.
And this is not considered like putting a mixel in front of an aver.
Why is it a mixel to have food? We always Yom Kippur. We also have. We're telling him that if you need, if it's an emergency, we have food for you. Like anybody, in Yom Kippur, you have food in your house. It's not called a mixel. We're not telling him go ahead eat if you want to. We said if you need to eat, there's available over here.
By the way, it sounds like it was a miracle. An old man goes 3.5 hours in the desert, not need to drink.
Why should they take an old man?
I think there's a medrash the medrash said they didn't live out the year. They took an old man, if I remember correctly. Or maybe the Targum.
If you can find it, I appreciate it. But the Pashtus doesn't say such a thing. It would be
Even a young person, a young person to walk in the desert 3.5 hours and not need something to drink.
Okay, I hear.
Okay,
So maybe
the medrash he's quoting is brought by the Chizkuni Arishon, and it's a medrash on Achrei Mos, which I haven't found inside, but it doesn't say he's an old man. It just says that he wouldn't live out the year, and they say something about how they knew who was the guy, like how was it Nevuah? How did they know he wasn't going to live the year? And it also doesn't say how they convinced him to take the job either. But it was true the Ish Iti is defined by that as Mizuman Higiazmano. Iti Higiazmano Lamut. He's going to die this year.
if you can find the source, I appreciate it.
I saw it quoted from the Yalkut Ruvaini B'Shem Tikkunim.
If it's possible to get to the source, if it's the tikkunim, let's see find the tikkunim. Like, where does it say such a thing?
I don't know. That's what it
Okay.
says.
It's not it's called it's not a standard medrash. Like, it's not standard. So I'd like to see more what the source is. Emmanuel, it's not a kasha how they convinced him. The problem was how they told him that he's going to die. But once he knows he's going to die, it doesn't make a difference if he takes it out or not. It's not the taking out which is going to cause him to die. You're not saying that a person. That's how you're saying it. That they took a person anyway going to die. That's how you tell them.
For a while, they figure out they're going to die after everyone. It's like the Kohen Gadol. If the guy dies every year, so the people figure out that the guy who's going to take the job is going to die. The question is how do you get the job? But the Chizkuni's a Rishon, and he brings the Medrash in Achrei Mos. So the Medrash is real, that E.T. means Higias Mano Lamut, and that's why they picked him. But it doesn't say he's old. It does not say he's old.
Okay. The Gemara continues. It says, he would cut the string in half. It doesn't say in half. They would cut the string and put half of it, let's say half of it on the rock, half of it on the goat. How come? If there's some reason to put it on the rock, which we don't know yet, but we'll see in a minute, so why not put the whole thing on the rock? The answer is, given the mitzvah b'sar, since it is a mitzvah to push off the goat, even if it turns white. It might turn white before you pushed off the goat. And if that's going to happen, if he's going to put the string, the red string on the rock, tie it on the rock, and it'll turn white, he might think he was yotze already and not continue to push the goat off, and he's supposed to. So this way, we told him not to do the whole, not to tie the whole thing on the rock. So why not tie the whole thing on the goat? Why not tie the whole thing on the goat? He might, when he's falling down, when he's on the way down off the cliff, he might turn his head in a way that the Ish Iti wouldn't be able to see if the string turned white. So therefore, we wanted to have evidence if it turned white, so half is on the rock. So what Rashi explains is that it won't turn white. If you have to put half of it on the goat, it's not going to turn white until you finish doing that mitzvah, putting it on the goat. Once he's osik with the goat, he's not going to forget and say, I don't have to do it anymore. He's not going to forget. He's going to continue doing whatever he has to do. If he put it onto the rock, then it turns white, he's happy. He goes home. What happened to the goat? The goat will walk around. He's not interested anymore because it turned white. But that's only because he didn't start doing anything with the goat. But if we tell him that he should take half and put it on the goat, it's not going to turn white until the half is on the goat. And once he's osik in the goat, he's not going to forget to continue doing it. So that's the asik why we made half of it on the rock, half of it on the goat. Tan Rabbanan. But we show now your question in Lashon Shal Zohar on Pesach Ulam Bechutz. And originally, no such thing to put on the goat. The whole source of this halacha is what the pasuk, what it says in the Masechah Shabbos, Menayin Shekosh in Lashon Shal Zohar. It says, if your sins are going to be like a scarlet thread, it'll become like white, like snow. Kashela Gelbinu. So that's why that was the remez or the source that we learn out that you're supposed to take a red string and it's going to turn white. But it doesn't say to tie it on the goat at all. The whole thing of tying it on the goat was an invention that the Rabbanan invented. So here it says originally they used to tie it on the Pesach Ulumi Bechutz. They tied it outside the Beis Hamikdash, and everybody could see it. It was a red string, and then it would turn white. But the problem was sometimes it didn't turn white. If it would turn white, everybody would be happy. If it didn't turn white, everybody would be sad. Here it says also Mizbaishin, they would be shamed. Some don't have that girsa, but we didn't want people should be sad on Yom Kippur, even though it didn't turn white. So we didn't want to have that public declaration that it didn't turn white. So then they decided to tie it inside the ulam, so it wasn't public. Not everybody saw it, but some people did get in. Some kohanim, they did go in to see, and they also saw if it was white or not. But I know people would look inside and they would see if it became white. And still, the problem was sometimes it didn't, and they would see it. And we don't want people to be saying Yom Kippur. That's why they made the takana that it should go out. It shouldn't be here. It shouldn't be in the area where people are. It should go with the goat. And he'll know about it. He'll see if it got red or not, but he'll be sad maybe, but it's not going to affect the whole tzibur that they should see that it didn't become white. And then that's what the Gemara said before. How come do it half and half? Why not all on the goat or all on the rock? Not all on the goat because it might turn his head in a way on the way down he won't see it. And maybe not all on the rock because he might forget to or ignore the fact that he's supposed to push it off the cliff once it became white. Amar Rabbi Nachum bar Papa Mishuma Belazar Kappa.
I'm sorry, I don't understand why it's tied to the rock and to his horn at the same time. Or is the same string, or they're two different strings?
He cut it in half. It says that he cut the string in half.
He cut the string in half, and now there's one. Part of it is tied to a rock that's not going to go anywhere.
Right, and the other one is on.
And that's the one they're going to look to see if it changes colors. The one on the rock.
Both of them changed. Both of them turned white. If they turned white, both of them turned white. But the one on the rock, surely the man will be able to see. The one on the goat, he might not be able to see because it's on the way down the cliff.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Ama Rabbi Nachum bar Papa Mishuma Belazar Kappa. The same thing that we said before, that originally they used to tie it on the, here it says on the inside, this was the second stage already, that they would tie it in the inside the ulam. When would it turn white? When the goat got to the desert. Going to the desert is still a long time till it was pushed off. I think the Gemara is going to say later on, either tomorrow or the next day, it's going to say that when it got the midbar was like three mil from Yerushalayim till the midbar was three kilometer, and then there was another 9 kilometer or so to go till you got to the cliff. But it could have turned white as soon as it got to the midbar already. So when it would turn white, so they knew that the mitzvah was fulfilled. At least it got to the midbar. It's true that it's supposed to be pushed off the cliff, but to get to the midbar, that it got to the midbar, that's called nasis mitzvah. So we'll see later on how much. We said that all this is not ma'akev. We said that once you did vidu, even Rav Shimon, the biggest machmir, he said that the goat only has to is only ma'akev if it did vidu. Once you did vidu, all this is not ma'akev. We did say that some hold even earlier, as long as the blood of the Sarah Hashem was sprinkled also, the Sarah Azaz was not makiv anymore. But here it says that the mitzvah was to get it to the midbar, and then it would turn white. But it seems that according to what Rashi said, that once there was a takana to divide it in half, it's not going to turn white until he ties half of it on the rock and then half of it on the goat, and then it's possible that it's going to turn white. He was going on.
That would be even if the goat didn't fall off the cliff.
Right.
It wouldn't makiv.
Right. Yes, it's not makiv even if he didn't send it to the midbar at all. Once he did vidu, the Kohen Gadol in the base of it did vidu on the goat, and the goat heard all the virus that's going on, and then it died right there. So it's finished. It's not makiv. It's fine. You were yosei to Sarah Azazel, even if it didn't get out of the base of mikdash at all, as long as the Kohen Gadol did the vidu. Here it's talking about what the mitzvah. The mitzvah is that it maybe wouldn't have turned white at that point. But as far as turning white, here it says when it got to the midbar, it would turn white. This was originally when they used to still leave the whole string in the base of mikdash. Originally, afterwards, they made a takana to take it with the goat, and the goat then they would cut it in half. So then Rashi said, Rashi's mashma a little bit, that it wouldn't turn white until he finished doing whatever he's supposed to do. That he's supposed to tie it half on the rock, half on the goat, and then it might turn white. But then, since he's being osik in the goat, then already he's going to continue doing his job. So as far as the end takana, first it was originally outside the base of mikdash, then inside the base of mikdash, and then they decided to divide it in half, to tie it around the goat, and then the ish iti, when he got to the cliff, he would then cut it in half and put half on the rock, half on the goat, and it wouldn't turn white until then, and then he would finish pushing it off the cliff, and he'd be able to make sure if it turned white or not. If it did not turn white, he'd come back the next day, and people would ask him, did it turn white? And he would say, they didn't turn white, so they would be sad the next day. But we didn't want them to be sad on Yom Kippur itself, so that's why we didn't leave it around here. Four lines from the bottom. The goat didn't get even halfway down, and it already was cut up into Ivarim from like a jutting cliff that he would get cut up on the way down. Of course, you're not allowed to eat that meat because it wasn't shechted. But is it mutar bana? Or is it aser bana? Maybe it's kachim. Maybe it was kachim. It was taken from the money of the Trumas Alishka. Maybe that's one issue of the Gemara. Or maybe this is Gezeres HaKosav that you're not allowed to benefit from it. It might have been Nasis Mitzvah already. We had the sukkah before that. Usually Meila wouldn't be a problem because Nasis Mitzvah. So maybe that's why the Gemara here is not entertaining that issue at all. It's not Meila. But is there a pasuk that says that it's mutar, that says that it's aser? So Rav Shmuel Machlokes, if the meat of the goat is permissible to benefit from, to give it to a dog. Chadam mutar, chadam masur. Machlokes. We don't say who owes what. One says mutar, one says aser. Mandam mutar in the chsiv b'bamidbar. Mandam masur in the chsiv gezerah. So Rashi says the drasha is not a regular drasha. Rashi says bamidbar means it's hefker, permissible, everyone could use it, and the word gezerah means something which is considered a decree, something which is more aser. So the drasha is either that's permissible to use the meat or it's prohibited. Machlokes, if you're dashing bamidbar that it's mutar, or you're dashing gezerah that it's aser. Then what's the question? Each one wants to do with the other one's pasuk. The one says that it's aser. What does it do with the pasuk that says bamidbar? It says three psukim. Rashi points out the three psukim just to see Rashi a second. He says and then it says also and then it says three psukim where it says the word midbar. What do you do with these three psukim? The rabbos know the givon, that's one, and Shiloh and Beis Olamim. Another three psukim to say that it doesn't only apply to Mishkan, where the pasuk's talking about in Parshas Achrei, it also applies to the Mishkanos and the Beis Hamikdash, which came later. So Nova Givon, Shiloh, really Shiloh's first, Shiloh, then Nova Givon, and then Beis Olamim, the Beis Hamikdash. That this halacha of sending out the soil applies even in the Beis Hamikdash. Imagine, just to point out that in the midbar or in Nova Givon, are we going to say also that it's 12 mil or 10 mil? It depends where the cliff was. I don't know if they were able to design such a thing. If there's a cliff nearby, yes. If not, not. And how close is it? Is it exactly 10 mil or 12 mil? Maybe our Gemara is also, maybe our Mishnah is only talking about Ma'aser Shaya. Where was it? Was it 10 mil? Was it 12 mil? Maybe it's not a machlokes in halacha, just machlokes in Metzias. I don't know. The idach. The other man that says that it's mutter, the one who says that it's permissible. So what does he do with the pasuk gzera? The more said on the second line that the word gzera is mashma aser. You don't dash like that. So what do you do with the pasuk? Gzera. En gzera elo chatucha, davaracha en gzera elo davar misgazer, v'yored, davaracha gzera, shem atoma, ma'aseh toyuhu, tamaloma, ani Hashem, gazarte, ve'en lecha v'shus l'hara b'hen. So the Gemara says three drushes about the word gzera. Besides what we said before, that gzera might mean that you're not allowed to benefit from the meat. The Gemara has another three pshatim. The Brisa says that it might mean chatucha. Chatucha would mean that the cliff is like a sharp cliff. Just to point out, interesting that the pasuk doesn't say v'ferish a cliff. Everyone knows you throw the goat off. It doesn't say so. It says v'shalach asasir b'midbar. Is some portion of the pasuk shot that the whole mitzvah of Sarah Lazar is send it out in the midbar. He comes to the midbar, he lets go of it, and it walks away. And that's in the pasuk you don't see a cliff. But here the more zashting it means a cliff. From the word gzeira, that means chatucha, that it's a sharp cliff. Davracha gzeira means davar misgazer v'yored. It's going on the same idea, but it's going on the goat itself. The goat is supposed to be put in a situation where it gets cut up. The word gzeira also means chatuch, but the first thing is chatuch means like a sharp cliff. The second one is that it means it gets cut up. Davracha, the third shot is that it's a gzeira from me. It's like a decree to say that Hashem said it's my decree. And on that, the Gemara preface, the Brisa prefaces that it seems like something we don't understand. What is the Sarah Lazar? What are the things we understand? Kabbanis we understand. Other mitzvahs we understand. Some reasoning. But Shem Atoma Ma'aseh Tohu sounds like it's something which doesn't make sense. The whole thing of pushing the cliff off the cliff, sending it to the midbar. What is this about a kapara? How does it atone for anything? Hashem says, I'm the one who made this gezerah. I'm the one who decreed it. And don't think about it. Don't think that it doesn't make sense. If I decreed it, it makes sense, even if you don't know the reason. Rava, back to the subject, are you allowed to benefit from the meat of the Sarah Lazazel? Rava, it's more reasonable to say that it's mutter without the psukim, just reasonable alone. The Torah wouldn't have said to do something which might cause a stumbling block for somebody. So the Gemara says as far sometimes that if the meat is going to be usher and no one knows, you don't know dafka that this is the goat. It is true if you know where the cliff is and you happen to be walking down the cliff the day after Yom Kippur or something, like you found the goat over there, he should know that it's the Sarah Lazazel. But the Gemara makes it sound like you don't have to know. So it could be someone's going to come a couple of days later, passing by, he sees the goat, dead goat, he has the dog, why not eat the meat? So if there's no way to know, I don't know why there's no way to know. Don't you know where the cliff was? It could be not everybody knew. So if a person is going to pass by and use the meat, he's going to be a michshol. It can't be that the Torah said to do something which is going to cause a michshol. We don't do any precaution to make sure no one's going to take it. So since the Torah says that throw it off the cliff, and it could very well be someone's going to come and use the meat. It must be that it's mutter. So the Gemara said Machlokas before Rav and Shmuel, and here Rav says that it's mistaber, that it's permissible. It seems that's how he paskin. So if someone does go to the bottom of the cliff after Yom Kippur and he sees the goat over there, he's allowed to use it for dog meat or whatever it was. He's allowed to be nana.
Rebbe, what about Zui Shchitasai? Shchita is a matter.
But it's not. If it's asabana, it's still asabana, right? It doesn't say. It only said one thing so far, that there'll be an issur about also besbano, but it doesn't say that it's mutter. You're not allowed. It seems to show you're not allowed to eat it. The only question is if it's mutter bana or not. We don't say that it's shchita. We're not going to say that it's zui shchitaso legabe eating it. Just that Gemara that we had, I didn't see any reference on the side that is quoted anyplace else. So far, the only thing I see is that there's issur also besbano. As far as that halacha, that is called shchita. Tanu Rabbanan, azazel. What does the word azazel mean? Shehei az v'kasha. So Rashi says the word az means like strong, bold, and kasha. Rashi says because the word ale. The truth is it doesn't say ale. It says zel. We see the word how it's spelled. It's not spelled with an aleph lamed at the end. It says zayin lamed. But there's a drash to say that it means azazel, as if it would say ale, and ale means kasha. So that means you throw it off from a place which is az v'kasher, which again sounds like this cliff. You're taking it to, I think you're taking it to a place which is a strong place. Yachol b'yishub, maybe it's good enough even if it's in an inhabited place, a civilized place, if it's a cliff. But who says it has to be in the desert? No, it says it has to be in the desert. It has to be in a midbar and also from a cliff. So I'm not sure what the difference is between az v'kasher and tzuk. It could be an az v'kasher, it doesn't have to mean cliff. So I'm not sure. Maybe the cliff is a cliff. And then az v'kasha could mean maybe that it's jutting out in a way that it's going to get cut up on the way. Maybe. Tamaloma gezerah. And gezerah is going to mean that it's a cliff, that it's a sharp cliff. Tani idach, another brisa. Azazel kasha shebahorim, the hard mountains. So again, it sounds a little bit again like a cliff. I can't say for sure. But here we're saying again the word means kasher. And here, like Rashi said, that with darshaning ale, even though it doesn't say ale, it says zeil. But with darshaning, as if it would say ale. You see over there, the word ale means strong. Azazel, another drash on the word Azazel. So that's the famous thing about Uz and Azal. There were two malachim. Rashi brings down the Medrash. Here's Rashi, Uz of Azal. There were two malachim that in the days of Nama, that it says, Vayu b'nei Elohim es b'no Sodom, then the Parshas is gracious, and over there it says something about b'nei Elohim. The Pashup Shat might mean just the aristocracy. They took girls wherever they wanted to, but the Drash says that b'nei Elohim means they were malachim, and they committed adultery. Angels that committed adultery. So that's called Azav Azal, and here the Gemara is going to say that Sar Lazazel atones for adultery. Shemachapre Amaisa Uza or Azav Azal. Tani Rabbanan. That's Mishpatai Tasu. Here the Bryce is going to say the difference between a Mishpat and a Chok. That a Mishpat means something which is understandable, and a Chok means something which is not understandable. And it says both Psukim. You're supposed to do Mishpatim, you're supposed to do Chukim. Tani Rabbanan. As Mishpatai Tasu, you should do my Mishpatim, my laws. Even if it wouldn't have been written, it would make sense that it should be written. It means we could have figured it out on our own. Our human consciousness tells us that it's wrong. We spoke about this in Pirkei Avos recently about Derech Eretz. Here it says not only Derech Eretz, but anything that a person could have figured out with his consciousness that it's wrong. Like it says about the Zohar, Gilai Raish, Shvichas Damim, Gezel, Birchas Hashem. These things people could have figured out on their own, not to do about the Zohar, adultery, murder, theft, to bless, which was the opposite. It means cursing, to bless Hashem. So those things everyone can understand, and it's understandable what the Torah is saying. As Chukor said to Shmoru, over there it also says that you should do my chukim. Chukim means something you don't understand. These are mitzvahs that we don't understand. The human intellect doesn't understand why these things are prohibited, or a mitzvah, achilas chazir, the issue to eat tray for food, chazir. The Visha doesn't say the issue about health that they talk about nowadays. The Gemara doesn't recognize you can make healthy chazir also. The Torah says it's also to eat. The Visha Shatnes, the issue to eat, wear together wool and linen. Chalitzas Yavama, that a Yavama, in order to become permissible to marry out, she has to have chalitza. The whole process of chalitza seems like a strange thing. Taras Mitzvah, the whole process, how to make a Mitzvah Torah, which we have some of it already about there's birds, and there's also something about oil, and on his ear, and on his thumb, and on his toe. Not simple, not understandable why that makes him to be Torah. And Sarah Mishtalech, that's our point over here. We're talking about Sarah Mishtalech, to send the goat and to throw it into the midbar, throw it off the cliff, and that could help to have an atonement for the Am Yisrael sins. How does that work? Shematoma Maisa Tohem, you might think that it's a nothing, it doesn't make sense. Talmud Lama, Ani Hashem Chakakta, Vein Lachov Rishus Lai Bohen. I Hashem made the decree, and you don't have no permission to think about it. It means to think about it in a degrading way, to scorn it. Hashem made the mitzvah, it surely has a sense to it, even though we don't understand it. And the last thing the Mishnah spoke about, the Tumas Begadim, the person who sends out, escorts the goat, he becomes Tamei. The pasuk says, Beferish, the Mishnah had two opinions. One was when he gets out of Yerushalayim, one was when he pushes it off the cliff. It says Hamashalech. So we're going to try to analyze what does the word Hamashalech mean? The one who sends out the goat. So Rashi says it means the escort. Only the actual person who's designated to escort the goat, he's the one sending out the goat. He's the one who becomes Tamei. But anybody else is coming along, the one who sends him, the ones who are escorting him, they don't become Tamei. Only the person, only the Ishiti becomes Tamei. You might think he becomes Tamei as soon as he leaves the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash, even in Yerushalayim. That's no such opinion in the Mishnah. We have two opinions in the Mishnah, either leaving Yerushalayim or pushing it off the cliff. But you might think that it becomes Tamei even earlier, as soon as he leaves the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash. It says the one who sends out the goat. That's not called sending. Sending means he's already on the mission of sending out the goat. When he just leaves Yerushalayim, he's not yet called that he didn't yet send the goat. He didn't yet escort the goat. So you might think that he has to complete the mission, that he sends it until the destination, that he's not Tamei until he reaches the destination. Talmud Loma v'hameshalech. That's again, it's not called Mishalech, means that he's in the mission of send, not that he finished the mission, that he's in the mission. Out of the Azara, he still didn't even start. He's not sending it out yet. And once he finished, he finished. So what's HaMashalech? Okay, it's not Mishalech. When he's in Yerushalayim, now he's already on the mission. It's like he's on the road already. When he's in Yerushalayim, it's not called on the road yet. Once he's out of Yerushalayim, till the tzuk, that's already the mission, and he becomes Tamei as soon as he leaves Yerushalayim. But that's Rabbi Yehuda, that's the first opinion in our Mishnah. Rabbi Yossi Omer Azazel v'chibes ad she'yagiel atzuk. So this is a new opinion. We didn't have this. This was a third opinion. Our Mishnah only have two opinions, and here's a third opinion. In our Mishnah only have Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, and here it also has Rabbi Yossi. Azazel v'kibes ad she'yagiel atzuk, till he comes to the Azazel. When is v'kibes begadab? So Azazel means when he comes to the cliff. So he doesn't have to push it off the cliff. Once he comes to the cliff, that's already when he's Tamei Begadim. So according to him, not the whole time that he's going in the midbar, all those 12 mil, whatever, he's not Tamei. Only when he gets to the tzuk, that's when he's Tamei, even before he pushes it off. And the last opinion was also the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Zarko bebasachas bebasrosh umatami begadim. So mishalech lazazel. So the one who sends it off the cliff. That's his pshat. Mishalech lazazel. Not enough that he reaches the cliff, but when he pushes it off. So those are the three opinions. One is when Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yehuda when he leaves Yerushalayim. Rabbi Yossi when he reaches the cliff. Rabbi Shimon when he pushes it off the cliff. That's today's Gemara. Just to sum it up, it's all about Sarah Lazazel. And the first point was to say that there was an escort that went with him from Yerushalayim until the cliff. The Mishnah holds like a mayor that there was another 2 mil from the last sukkah, and they weren't able to escort him only halfway, and then they went to west by himself. And Gemara brings down another opinions that it was only 10 mil until the cliff, and there was a sukkah. There were 9 sukkahs or 5 sukkahs or maybe even 2 that were enough to bring the people until the cliff itself. Only according to Meir were they not able to escort him till the end. The Gemara also spoke about the fact that they had water and drink, water and food, but not necessarily did anybody ever need it. But pas pasalo, it's good to have it over there. This way it makes it easier for him to fast. And the Mishnah talks about that he divided the string in half. Originally it was not like that. Originally it was first on the Beis HaMikdash on the outside, then the Beis HaMikdash on the inside, but people saw it and they were discouraged if it didn't turn white. So therefore they sent it along with the goat, that people shouldn't see it over here. And over there, we made a precaution to make sure that we're able to see it, and that he does the whole job. He doesn't forget to do the whole job. So he divides it in half. The Gemara before learned out because of this reason, it should be a certain weight, a certain size. I think it says Mishkal Beis Salam because you have to have enough to be able to divide it in half. So he divides it in half. Half he ties on the rack, the other half he ties on the back onto the goat again, and then he's going to remember to push it off even if it turns white. And then he pushes it backwards off the cliff. The Gemara is machlokes if it's mutar ba'ana or not. The meat of the goat after it's killed. We had yesterday that if it doesn't die, he has to go down and kill it. He has to make sure that it dies, even if he didn't succeed by pushing it off. But it does say that always happened. That the question is not a question because it always happened. But if in case it would not die, so then you would have to kill it. Here it says, what did have benefit from the meat? Machlokes, either bamidbar or gezerah. The Gemara says at the end that it's mustaber, that it's mutter, because it might cause a mikshal. Someone might pass by and think that it's mutter. Why should you think that it's the sar mishtalech? And he might use the meat. So it must be that it's mutter. As far as the drushes, we had bamidbar and gezerah, it is mutter, that it's asar. After that, the Gemara said also that this whole halachas about standing it off the cliff also applies to Shiloh and Over Givon and the Beis Olamim, the Beis Hamikdash. Also, we learn out from these different sukkim that are supposed to be in the midbar and supposed to be off a cliff, and don't think that it's a ma'aseh tohu. Hashem says that I decreed it. Also, it says maybe it's machaper also on the arayas from Azza and Azazel. And the Gemara dashins the word el, Azazel, means that it's tough, it's kasha, and the word az also means like that. So it's supposed to be from a sharp cliff. Maybe it's supposed to be jutting out in a way that the animal will get cut up. And also in a midbar also. The Gemara talks about the mitzvahs that are called mishpatim, those that are called chukim, and Hashem says, oh, even when you don't understand, I'm the one who decreed them, and don't think that it doesn't have sense to it. And the last thing was the machlokes about when does the ish eating become tameh. In the Mishnah, there are two opinions. In the Gemara, there's a Bryce who has a third opinion, either when he leaves Yerushalayim, or when he reaches the cliff, or when he pushes it off the cliff.
Rabbi,
Yes, please.
two small points. One is that I understood yesterday the idea that it never didn't get killed, but also we had yesterday today we had that the animal could put its head between its legs and you wouldn't see the string, right? So
Yes.
I understood that it's kind of an umdana. The ish iti doesn't actually have to see the animal dead. He can assume he's dead, right? He doesn't have to check it. Or if he does, how does he do a birur? That's point number one.
You want to say that if he's going to have to check, he's going to have to go down the cliff in order to see if it died or not. And
Whatever.
if he sees a vorim, so then I imagine that you see that it's all a bunch of limbs. I guess you see that it's dead. But if you don't, if for any reason, whatever happened, that you're not sure that it died, you want to say for something you could assume that it did. I hear what you're saying.
In a stam, do you have to do a birur or is it an umdana that it died? I thought it was umdana.
You're saying that you could assume that it died. Makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. I can't say for sure, but it makes sense.
Second akud is a diuk that the Mikdash David makes, which is very interesting. You noted that it says no v'givon at top. So no v'givon, there wasn't makom aron and there wasn't aron. So therefore, what the Kiddush is here is that Am Yisrael had to do the Sir Mishaleach even when they didn't have the possibility of doing the Sir LaHashem.
I'm not following it all. There was no Aron, but there's no Aron in the second base of Mikdash either. They still did everything. There's no Aron. There's no reason why they shouldn't be the Kabbalah.
Both. But the point is that the Gemara is telling you here that one wasn't totally on the other. Whatever we could do, we did. If we could do Ser Mishtaleach and we couldn't do Ser LaHashem, we still did it.
Why do you say that there's no Ser LaHashem? I'm not following. I'm sorry. You could always do Ser LaHashem. You could always do Ser Mishtaleach. Which case you have to only doing one?
Aaron, and there wasn't a Makom Aron. You did do Ser LaHashem.
You do this. We had the whole Gemara. Even second base Mikdash, the whole second base Mikdash, there was no Aron, and they still did the Sar LaHashem. I'm not following. They did the Sar LaHashem even when there's no Aron. In the base of Mikdash, the whole second base of Mikdash, it was already hidden 23 years before the Korban. So you could do a Sar LaHashem without an Aron.
Okay, I'll have to see the Mikdash David inside.
Okay, Yashikor. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back in about 10 minutes for Hilchos Muktzah. Thank you.